I welcome you all in this course, Introduction to the Philosophy of the Human Person. But it is very essential that before we proceed with the content of the lesson, let us go first to this question that will serve as our springboard why we are going to take this course. Okay, let us always remember that the object of study and method define the nature of every discipline. Remember that. While define the method object of study of every discipline. While the same can be said of philosophy. Philosophy refuses to be framed within these limitations. Now, the reason for this clear refusal is that reality, being philosophy's object of study, is immensely varied and abundant. We cannot confine reality into one specific discipline because of its immense abundance. Now, given this immeasurable rich reality, any method at our disposal cannot exhaust every possibility of knowing. This is the nature of philosophy, guys, as a discipline. A humanist discipline that is encompassing in its breadth and at the same time descriptive but not deterministic. What do we mean then by philosophy as an old field? It is undoubtedly seen as receptive to wide-ranging possibilities of knowing all that can be known. Some clarity is required for it to be understood as a particular discipline in the humanities and as academic course. Now, we might ask, or you might ask, at the outset, what is philosophy? What entails philosophizing? And what is the true object of one's philosophizing? Remember, guys, that these are just some of the questions that we have to grapple with as we go through a number of topics concerning the nature of philosophy. I want you to remember these three questions. What is philosophy? What entails philosophizing? And what is the true object of one's philosophizing? Then we will encounter that in other chapters of our discussion in your book. Now, the topic on the description of philosophy bespeaks of the integrative aspect of philosophizing as it searches for ito yung goal of philosophy, searches for the truth. Insight will deal with the very nuances of philosophical thinking that involves conceptual analysis. In addition, the topic on reflection brings to light the two levels of reflection, namely analytic and synthetic reflection. Guys, in philosophy or in studying philosophy, it is indispensable that a person has the capacity to reflect either in a way that is analytic or synthetic. And this is the challenge of our time today, especially of your generation. How many of you would spend time reflecting on single details or single events of our life in our day-to-day existence? Have you ever thought of one thing, getting up this morning and pondered why this thing comes, why this thing exists? Those are simple questions, yet we try to disregard and neglect time to reflect. So we can find meaning to the existence of these things that surrounds us. And lastly, the other concern of philosophy is the topic on problem and mystery. We will see the question of being as fundamental issue in philosophy. What is that being? What is the problem behind this being? And what is the mystery behind this being? I hope by now you are having now a curiosity and excitement. Wow, what is the problem of being and mystery behind being? I remember one time in our philosophy discussion back then when I was in college, my professor asked me to enter his office for a an oral quiz, oral recitation quiz. And in that oral recitation quiz, I was surprised. I studied hard all the the pop sheets that were given to us, and I was just surprised. When I entered the classroom, he just asked me one thing. Jed, do you see that big rock placed at the door? Because kapag may hangin, the door will move, will move and it will be closed. So he needs to put a rock at the door to stop the door from moving. So he asked me, do you see that rock or stone at the door? Opo, why? Okay, what do you think is the very essence of that rock placed at the door? Wow, I was led to that very problem of the existence of that kind of being and the mystery behind that being. That is how we journey in studying philosophy. But of course, in your case, as a senior high school student, do not expect me to exhaust everything because I cannot do that in a very limited number of days and meetings. And given then the curriculum of senior high school, everything is just a pure introduction. There is more to the world of philosophy, especially if you engage into courses related to philosophy. Okay, let me proceed. So that is the one of the things that concerns philosophy, to seek the to understand the problem and the mystery of that of any being that exists in this world. Now, it is also acknowledged that a definition of philosophy is helpful in ways it frames our understanding on how we can distinguish philosophy from other disciplines. As I said, if other disciplines, the one I presented in the first slide, have their object of study and method, we cannot employ that to philosophy, since philosophy is abundant in its entirety. Now, it is best, however, to begin from an act of philosophizing, since it opens numerous possibilities for seeing the truth, which is not limited by some technical definition. And I'm telling you truly that this approach is not only beneficial to you who is beginning to unravel the world of philosophy, but a faithful approach to the very act of philosophizing. This is one thing I love and I like most about K to 12 program, because part of the curriculum as core subject to all strand is the subject Introduction to Philosophy. It is good to note that at early age we teach our young people to philosophize, so at least the basics of philosophy, so that you can at the at the start now you can see things clearly with an eyes who has the better understanding of reality. And just a hindsight, before I offer philosophy to grade 11 students, especially to UMS, but I changed my mind after listening to the talk of my ever famous philo teacher, Michael Moga, SJ, a Jesuit priest in Ateneo. He told us in one of his talks previous years that philosophy should be taught to a matured mind and should not be taught to very young age, because it will also somehow jeopardize the understanding of the individual, since they still lack the capacity of ascertaining things. And I thought of it as right. Why? Para kasi sa akin, the mature age of an individual in when he steps at 18 or about to enter into the age of 18. For me, though the church tells us that the age of reason is 12, for me in the area of philosophy, the age of reason is 18, because this is even the time for in Philippine context or among Filipinos, this is the time where we supposed to separate with our parents and live independently, right? Sige, that is just a hindsight. Now let me continue. Now, what is philosophy back then? Now, in Western and Eastern civilization, both possesses a rich philosophical tradition. When I say Western tradition and civilization, I'm referring to these people, namely Plato, Aristotle, Saint Thomas, Augustine, Descartes, René Descartes. You encounter him in your class in mathematics. Hegel and Kant. These are people who belong to the West civilization, those who live in Europe. Now, the other part of civilization is that of the East, and we have these famous philosophers in the East: Confucius, Lao Tzu, the Hinduism and Buddhism. Now, why am I presenting this? It is very important that in our study of philosophy, I am telling you now in advance that I will not be touching anything about the Eastern civilization. I will not I will not discuss more of the philosophy of Confucius, Lao Tzu, and that of Hinduism and Buddhism, because I will focus more our discussion on the understanding of philosophy of these Western people. Sir, bias ka? Yes, you're right in saying that. I am biased when it comes to teaching philosophy. Because for me, as a Catholic school, I have also to teach you something that is scholastic in its approach, because we are a Catholic institution. But there's a problem with my list. I forgot to write the name of Socrates. Socrates should come first before Plato, since Socrates was the teacher of Plato. So that is with a different civilization. So as we shall find out later on in this in our discussion, philosophers, then we will realize that philosophers have grappled with the problem of truth and how life must be lived in a moral way. Now, the truth is not something that is up there on the sky that people must look up. Remember, guys, that the truth is at the heart of the human existence. Please take note of this. The truth is at the heart of the human existence. We must have an open mind, guys, in order to understand the truth. We can never appreciate nor see a glimpse of truth if we don't open our mind. For this reason, we need to embrace the love of learning. My God, this is a problem among many students. Do you still have that passion for learning? Let me just share this to you. At my age now, I never get tired of learning. Some of my friends even would ask me or would tell me, those among alumni na mga friend ko, would tell me or ask, "Sir, are you not tired of studying? Why you keep on going to school? You are already a professional. You have already this degree. You have already this diploma, certificates, and the rest. Are you not tired of learning?" Well, I would just tell them, "Guys, this is my, you see it as a problem on my part, but this is the genuine happiness that I attain when I have that passion for learning, and so I go on further learning each day, and I never get tired of learning." Though, though I may not be pronouncing it in public that I am studying this, I'm studying this, but for this class sake, I'm telling you, I'm sharing it now to you. I do other studies because of that passion for learning. So that is very essential in the field of philosophy, that as a learner you should be able to embrace that love for learning, because philosophy offers this possibility. What is that possibility? The term philosophy, guys, comes from the Greek word, and it simply means the love of wisdom. It comes from the Greek word philos and sophia, meaning love, philos, love, and sophia, that of wisdom. That is the basic definition of philosophy from its etymological term, philos, sophia, the love for wisdom. Now, Let's pause for a while and ask ourselves, do I have that love for wisdom? As a student, do you have that love for wisdom? Okay, answer that among yourselves. Now, the history of ancient philosophy also tells us that the early Greek thinkers called themselves wise men. I remember in one of the articles that in one of the books that I read before when I was still a student, uh, according to Aristotle, sabi niya, if you want to have a good government and good governance, then appoint a philosopher king. Philosopher king. Bakit? For him, if you are a philosopher king, then you must be that person who has assimilated everything that speaks about being a wise man. You have assimilated that virtue of wisdom, the embodiment of what is wisdom. So for him, if you want to have a good governance and a good government, then appoint a philosopher king. That is in the Greek context. They called themselves they called the thinkers as wise men. But out of humility, guys, out of humility, there is this man named Pythagoras. The first to introduce the term simply wanted to call himself a lover of wisdom. That is philosopher. Now, for a philosopher to be a philosopher, he or she must be a lover of wisdom. There's a problem now here. Uh, distinction between, sorry, distinction between wisdom and being wise and being intelligent. I mean, there's a big discussion on that later during our synchronous classes. We'll try to make arguments, maybe, and try to find out which is important, being wise or being intellect. Okay? Now, for Pythagoras, I know you know him in your math classes, Pythagorean theorem. You must be you will you will only be a philosopher if you have that love for wisdom. Now, while humans naturally desire for the truth, not everyone really is concerned about it. Believe it or not, not everyone in this world is concerned about truth. I don't know, among you enrolled in this class or now grade 12, are you guys concerned of the truth? Because not everyone in this world is concerned of the truth. But can we disregard truth and actually say that philosophy does not really matter? In the light of this question, we are reminded of my favorite philosopher named Socrates. He is Socrates, who devoted all his life teaching the truth. Socrates was considered as midwife of ideas. In our introduction to philosophy, in the ancient philosophy, I remember then in our class lecture, sabi ng teacher ko, for Socrates, eh, you are a good philosopher if you help the other to bring out that best in them. Actually, that is the very essence of education, because education is actually from Latin word meaning educare. Educare in English means to bring out. So it was actually Socrates who first created the notion of education. If you want people to be better in their life, help them bring out that ideas in them. And he would act like as a midwife of ideas. I assume you know what is the work of a midwife. Di ba yung midwife, when a mother is giving birth or giving labor to a baby, the midwife is there, or the doctor, the PD, who will help in guiding the mother to bring out that baby from her. That is the work of the midwife, and that should be the work of a philosopher. So on my end, as a teacher, I cannot promise, but I will try my very best that I will act also as a midwife to you. That hopefully, when we end the course in philosophy, I can see that I have helped you, and you can also see that I have helped you bring out that best in you when you begin to rationalize on things. Because Socrates challenged those paraded themselves as holding an absolute claim for the truth. Sabi niya, that is hypocrisy. Na you are not actually holding the truth. Because for him to bring out truth, you have to do that Socratic method of question and answer. Yun. To bring out that best ideas in you. This is my personal conviction as a teacher. So sometimes I tell other teachers, companions here in school, I would tell them, there are actually brighter ideas that comes from our students, and do not think that because you are professional you have all the best ideas in life. We need to take time and listen to our students, because they have also that bright ideas that maybe have not been heard by people, that only them has it or have it. Okay, now for Socrates, there is this famous adage from Socrates, and everyone who studies philosophy knows this. Ano ha? Socrates this one, an examined life is not worth living. We examine what are the things that makes us happy. Are they true, genuine happiness? And second, we have to examine life, because living in this world, people are failed now to distinguish truth from mere opinion, especially in the emergence of these social media. Diba? In the world of social media and communication and networks, people get confused now whom to listen and who has the right information. Given now the chance that we study philosophy, I hope philosophy would cater our understanding and would cater us to comprehend things, and somehow would cater us to be critical in our thinking, and be careful to whom we listen and what we acquire as part of the information that we receive. What I'm trying to say is that to things that is presented to us, take time to filter. Diba? Yun yung term. Take time to filter so that you can draw which is factual, which is true, which is a mere opinion. Because the problem of many people today, especially in your generation, forgive me for saying this, especially in your generation, I notice that you have the tendency to opt to listen to a mere opinion, and many would fail to listen to what is true. Okay? So, we should be able to distinguish this, because it creates so much conflict in our community. And so, in this sense, Socrates taught that we must examine ourselves. This is the point of Socrates, most especially on our view of human life. How do we view human life? Socrates did not write anything. The problem of Socrates, di ba I mentioned kayo na Plato, Socrates should come first before Plato, because I forgot to write his name. Because as a teacher, this was the problem of Socrates. He never wrote anything that he taught. But it was Plato, who happened to be his student, who put everything into writing. And all credits now were given to Plato, unless if Plato would acknowledge Socrates in that specific statement. So all is known, ideas and teachings are attributed now to Plato. Now, Plato, for knowledge, according to Socrates, as he taught, can be attained through, it means knowing that I do not know. Iyan yung parang stand ni Socrates as a philosopher. He's very humble. Kaya nga siguro, as a philosopher, too much humility, he was not even able to write. He was not even able to write everything that he has taught Plato. Because for him, he lives on this principle and belief that he does not know anything. A philosopher has the humility to say, I do not know everything. But someone who is not a philosopher will always have the claim that I know everything. Sometimes it's funny to hear whenever students or alumni, for example, last weekend we had our relaxation sa Bukid. One of the alumni asked me, Sir, I have a question. Whenever a person would tell me, "Sir, I have a question," I would always have my preliminary response. I would always ask, "Makatubag ko?" Then, some of them would be offended. Sa gabi po si sir. Kaya po nang di ka katubag. No, I am very honest when I ask that question. Makatubag ba ko? Whenever you ask me question, do not think that all questions will be answered. Because I might not be able to answer because I do not know everything. Since I do not know everything, that is the very reason why I have this thirst for truth, quest for truth. And so the very reason why I have also the passion for learning, because I want to know more things, because I don't know anything. That is docta ignorancia. Now, it is when the people or the person acknowledges that he actually knows nothing that reality unfolds before him. Would you believe on me? When a person acknowledges that he or she actually knows nothing, the reality unfolds before that person. So don't think that you know everything. Otherwise, you will not have that quest for the truth anymore. But when you say you do not know anything and you do not know anything, you have that quest, and given the quest, things will be unfolded before you. There is that what we call the divine revelation. Now, philosophical questions are meant to awaken us. Uh, some of my students now in Ateneo, even if you're finished with your philosophy, Ateneo would really require students to take a philosophy again. Now, when they were enrolled in college, they asked me, "Sir, what is really philosophical question?" So, I must admit, I had the difficulty of explaining what is a philosophical question. And so what I often did, I told them, "Guys, ganito na lang. Send me your output and I will paraphrase them, I will check them, so you will have the philosophical questions submitted to your teacher." So that is also the advantage of the online learning, and even with the social media, we can easily connect to each other. That despite the fact that they are now college, we're still connected to each other because I'm still helping them. I hope you will not ask me to help do your assignments. Many of them are asking me to do that. Now, for Socrates, true learning is not a blind obedience to a master. I am I get disappointed during face-to-face discussion before face-to-face class. I get disappointed when students will just agree on what I said. And whenever they just nod and agree on what I said in the class, then I would tell them, "Are you sure, guys? Are you thinking?" Because I might be saying here things that are erroneous. So do not think that everything that your teacher tells you in the class are true, because some of them might be erroneous. So to test the capacity of my students on how they think critically, sometimes I would deliver things in our classroom discussion that are erroneous, and I would just wait for somebody to react that would say, "Sir, are you saying that blah blah blah? Is that right?" Because I want somebody who is able to challenge a statement, because that must be the role of a learner, of a student. Do not embrace that blind obedience to your master or to your teacher. Take time to question what people are saying. Well, it does not make you less of a person if you disagree, right? As long as you don't make yourself disagreeable. And you'll see the difference later. Now, we do not simply accept things as told of us. Remember that always. Because true learning is always when you try to find ways of doing and living, you get to draw also yourself to think this one, the nature or constitution of things. So maybe one day when he was sitting, observing uh, how things came into existence, and then the constitution of everything in nature, then he thought of water, because maybe for him water is very essential that time, and the component of the human body is water, that even the earth has a vast number of water. So he thought of the constitution of things, then now is water. And it was Thales who thought of it first, who pondered on that question first. And so we even consider him as the father of philosophy. Easy as that. I will not discuss any more other ancient philosophers to you because this is not your major subject. But if you go to college and take up AP philosophy, you will encounter, for sure encounter other cosmological philosophers. I call them cosmological because when they thought of the constitution of things in this world, they look at the earth, the cosmic view of the earth, and dun lang kinukuha. So some would say okay, water, some would say fire, and the rest of the ancient philosophers. But for your just for your foundation this morning or this day, at least you have the knowledge that the first person to think of things, and that made him the first philosopher, was that of Thales. Now, philosophy in this regard is about that big question. What is that big question? Yun. Sa philosophy, we asked what is being, and when we ask what is being, this is under the field of metaphysics. There are different disciplines, field of disciplines in philosophy, and one of those is metaphysics. And the concern of metaphysics is understanding what is being. That is a long course throughout the semester. You study metaphysics. The other big question is what is reality? What is life? I mean, what is life? And under this are a lot of disciplines in philosophy: social philosophy, philosophy of man. What you have is introduction to the philosophy of human person. There is also a separate course we call philosophy of man. There we study what is life, and even natural philosophy, because we study biological science, physical science, and there we try to have the understanding of what is life. The other big question is what is love. It falls more on the contemporary time of studying philosophy under other postmodern philosophers. And lastly, the question on what is reality. What is reality is also discussed in the area of metaphysics, the one that asks the question what is being. Okay? So these are the big questions in philosophy. Now, as a student in this introduction to the philosophy of the human person, I hope that you are having now these four foundational big questions in philosophy. Start to ponder now on your own. What is life? Ayaw na lang sa mo hunang-huna what is being and what is reality. Mabuang mo. Bisag kanin lang sa the very important one. What is life? And if you would want, ask the question, what is love? Then you will find out there are a lot of things that you will discover when you ask this question. Because philosophy is our opening to the real world. Philosophy helps us to open the real world. This opening allows us to come into a full view of nature of reality. Because philosophy as a mode of inquiry has that unique task of probing into the final or ultimate cause of things. This means that above all else, we philosophers are concerned with what? Thinking. Yan, may question mark, oh. We are concerned of thinking. Sa philosophy department, very famous tong ganito na position of the human person. This is actually, we refer this to Socrates. Okay? So, this means also that above all else, we are concerned of thinking. And philosophy is not only concerned with thinking about the life of the species, philosophy is human life itself. If science, in the field of science like biological science, natural science, they focus on life as mere species, and so you examine and you do experimentation, discovery out of it. Philosophy is human life itself. We studied the entirety of the human person as biological person, as a person who is an embodied spirit. So the entirety of the human person we try to discuss in philosophy. Now, I remember that one person, Julian Marias, has classified the distinction between human life and biological existence. Unfortunately, I am not your teacher in understanding culture, society, and politics. There's an in-depth, somehow an in-depth discussion on this in one of the chapters. Biological distinction between human life and biological existence. Now, for Julian Marias, for him, he is a man. Human beings live in order to, yan, find a sense of purpose or meaning in life. This meaning, which is found outside of the self, is the very root with respect to how human life is supposed to be truly lived. When we have that sense of purpose and meaning of our life, then we know how we should live our life, truly lived our life. And I'm drawing you back to the maxim of Pythagoras that the unexamined life is not worth living for. Okay? I am drawing you back to that line. I mean, not of Pythagoras, Socrates, I mean. So, how we should live our life. This existential fulcrum defines for us what it means to be human and with a sense of certitude that we are not merely a biological species. Sometimes kasi we fall into the trap that we think of ourselves as purely biological species na we eat whenever we get hungry, we drink whenever we get thirsty, we go for recreation when we get bored. That's how we define life, and that is still in the biological aspect, though the other one is physiological, but still it responds to the biological aspect of the human person. But if we go transcend beyond this, is life is about merely eating, playing? What is the very meaning of life? Is it just about going on recreation, satisfying my needs? And so, this draws us to the art of thinking as is concerned of philosophy. Thinking begins from the very moment we ask question. When you ask question about your purpose and meaning of your life, philosophy in this sense is our way of engaging to reality, or with human reality to be precise. Now, guys, in order to understand human reality, we have to ask that what human life is not. The opposite yung approach ni philosophy. We should not ask what human life is. Let us go backward. What human life is not. Questioning is a way of bringing us to the possibility of living an authentic existence. What if, as I am? In philosophy, the foundational question is, who am I? Everyone who studies Introduction to Philosophy always goes back to that question, who am I? The understanding of one's self. How deep is your understanding of yourself? How profound is your knowledge of yourself? Yun. You must naturally possess the desire to know truth. Diba? As human person, we have that desire to know the truth, but we fail to understand the truth of ourselves. I forgot that song. I will try to share it na lang during our synchronous classes. There's that song. Basta the message of the song was this. Someone who is already in paradise but has never been to herself. She has reached the idea of paradise but had never thought of who she is. Kasi babae yun na kanta. Now, the quest for knowledge is a kind of hunger from deep within the person. This is what I love about philosophy and being a philosopher. I always have this question about myself, about person, everything around me. This hunger then reveals that the human mind has that yearning for knowledge of the self. Guys, do you have that yearning knowledge of yourself? So, before I would end, let us remember that philosophical thought puts into question our most basic assumption about the world. Most of the time, we take human life for granted. Philosophy, being the higher order, opens the door that enables us to commit to the greater truth of human life. So, the pursuit of this truth allows us to go beyond the practical aspect of our existence. And so, by means of philosophy, we can think about what is the most profound of all. Again, that is human life itself. Okay, thank you for your attention in this first part of the introductory part of your course on Introduction to the Philosophy of Human Person. So I am urging you now that as you go to the module, you have already a little ideas about this. You'll be able also to express yourself in the activities that I place or questions that I place inside your modules in your elements. God bless everyone and thank you.